So I love how your book is a call to action for the church to return to our roots
Mhm.
of standing out inside the world's culture. You wonderfully underscored the distinctions between Christian worship and Roman religion, or as you say, how the Christian superstitio stood out from the Roman religio. You showed how Christians
Mhm.
were weird, dangerous, compelling. But I want to first understand some shortcomings of the early church. Like your book, I want to ground our journey of discovering the beauty of the earliest followers of Jesus by acknowledging that they weren't perfect. Early Christians were far from perfect. While in general I think they were weird, and while I think they were attractive and compelling in their best moments, and as manifestations of Jesus' kingdom vision, the truth is that churches fell short then, just as they do now. Early Christians did not glow with saintly halos, and it is important for the sake of honest history telling to be reminded of their shortcomings. So, tell me a little bit about how we can learn to be weird, dangerous, and compelling like the early church, but first help us understand some of their shortcomings, like slavery and fighting and all the
Yeah.
things that you spoke about.
Yeah, my day job is, I teach and study the letters of Paul. And when you open up First Corinthians or Galatians, you just get the really clear sense that Christians were at each other's throats a lot. And in some ways, that's embarrassing and discouraging. And I feel like there's sometimes a tendency to sweep those things under the carpet. Just being honest about being human.
Mm,
And I think today, sometimes we have this inclination to minimize our mistakes, minimize our failures. I think we live in a society that really values honesty. And that if you just come right out and say, hey, my people, my tribe have done some terrible things,
mm,
they've done some good things. And I've done some things I'm not proud of, but I really feel like this way is the best way. One of the reasons Jason and I did this is because part of my book is drawing out the competitive nature of religions in the ancient world and saying, hey, there are all these different walks of life. You can follow Artemis, you can follow, uh, Juno, you can follow all these different paths. But the Christians said, hey, we got this path. We think it's the best. But then we can also be honest that we're not the perfect reflections of Jesus all the time. I think I did this partly to say, this is the hard work of good history. Good
yeah.
history. I remember when I first found out, like maybe as in young 20 something, that Martin Luther King Jr. wasn't perfect. I remember when I first found that out and how discouraged I was. Like he has some skeletons in his closet. That doesn't that doesn't wash away the amazing things he did. And I think same thing with the early Christians. They did amazing things. They did miracles. They led to a worldwide revolution. We can talk about the sanctity and dignity of every human being because of Jesus and the apostles.
Yeah.
But I think it's really important for honest history for our churches today. Think about the scandals in churches today where it's really hard for a pastor that's done something bad to say, I made a big mistake. Like we don't create paths for them to show that kind of transparency and honesty. Now, definitely that person should do it no matter what.
Yeah.
But we also have not, we've created this impossible standard for people that they can't face those issues in their life because we made it too hard. So I really wanted to go back and say, it's easy to idealize the early Christians and say, they were perfect, we're not. Oh, well, let's try as hard as we can. When we look back, we say, Jesus loved those numbskulls, even with their failings, and it didn't stop him from using them.
Yeah, I think it's great to have accurate history what you're saying, and I loved what you went through, like the fighting that was in there, and then even the fact that they were like okay with slavery, because
Yeah.
like you brought up Martin Luther King, and for me one of my like crazy aha moments was actually with Martin Luther, but Martin Luther, the reformist,
Yeah. Yeah.
when I found out that
Yeah.
how much he was like a racist against the Jews. You know what I mean? Like
Yes.
you read
Yes.
some of his later writings, not early writings, later writings, and you're like
Yeah.
appalled. Like you're like, how could this be the
It was
guy
bad.
that followed Jesus? And I think it's important to say what you say. We don't throw out the baby without the bathwater, but at the same time, we need to report, that part of it so that we can learn from it, be honest about our own mistakes that we're making now, and learn from theirs as well. So I'm glad that you brought that up, and I think it's important for us to understand that they weren't perfect, but we do have a lot to learn from them.